Hi everyone, it's me again, in a very familiar setting, I'm afraid. For those of you that watched the end of my last vlog will know that I'm away for a couple of weeks, so I've decided to sort of pre-record some vlogs, just to give you a little bit of background really, and just sort of carry on. I promised you guys I would start posting on a Tuesday, so the plan is to make sure I keep up with that. So episode 6 is all about how I got started. So a little bit of background about myself for those of you who don't know. I'm left-handed. This is not a trick with the camera. I am genuinely left-handed. I started on a right-handed guitar upside down around the age of sort of 12, 13. Why on a right-handed guitar upside down? We had an old electric guitar in the house, and basically I was nagging mum and dad for ages to let me play it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get it, we'll play around with it." And I used to play my dad's bass, which was like his pride and joy, and I used to pick that up and try and play it upside down and work through bits. And so one day they grabbed me out this right-handed guitar. It was an old battered electric. I don't even, non-branded electrics, and it barely worked. And I'd sit and spend hours just sort of like fretting the board, just trying to work out stuff, and then just strumming the strings, and that doesn't sound right, just trying something else. And all of a sudden I started to find that I was picking up sort of the odd chord or the odd sound here and there. And musically wise, I'd always been involved because I actually was a trumpet player for 6 years at school. So I started playing trumpet at secondary school. And I struggled a bit because my lung capacity and so on. So I got to a level and then I was really struggling. So this was sort of in my latter years of school. I sort of picked up a guitar. And for my 13th birthday, I actually turned up 2 days late. So it was 2 days after my 13th birthday, I got my first left-handed guitar, which was an Encore Strat starter pack. So it had this black Encore Strat and a little 10-watt Marshall amp. And I just remember being absolutely overjoyed. And I remember sitting there, like, trying to pick up chords. And on the back of the headstock was this sort of tag. And it had, like, the simple A, F, C chords in it. And I sat there, spent time reading it and working it out. And it actually turned out that the bulk of what I'd been playing on a right-handed guitar upside down was actually real chords. It's just, obviously with the strings being the wrong way around, they didn't look quite right to me. So, a lot of people said, "Oh, you played like Hendrix." Well, I'm not sure how well known it is, but Hendrix actually did string his guitars as a left-handed player. He just had a right-handed body upside down because they were easy to get hold of, and you could get a slightly different sound and so on. There are some amazing players out there now that genuinely play a right-handed guitar upside down. So there's a few around like that. So I had this left-handed Encore Strat, and I used to sit and the usual sort of guitar starting thing, you try, you're placing a finger. So there was my C, and I was like, okay. And now I've got to move to an A, and you do the whole thing, all the fingers come off, and you know. There's your A, and then you're right, okay, now I need to get between the two. Okay, this is scary, and you know. Okay, we're good. And basically I just spent hours and hours just running between the two. And now, quite naturally, but that was the other bit for me, I've even done it then, just that, I taught myself to play completely. It was all tabs, it was all chord books, and friends saying, "Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" But a lot of it for me was, let's pick a C chord. And then I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds nice. So does that. Interesting. Okay. Oh, hang on, that sounds familiar." And then you'd actually get the start of a song. for me, strumming. A lot of people say, "How do you learn to strum?" I find it really hard to explain. Everybody talks about the down, down, up, down, down. I can't explain it. I can't do it that way. For me, it's about how does a song feel. When you pick out a song, picking patterns even. I didn't look picking patterns up for those songs. I sort of found that I could hear them. I think that's a big thing for me. It's about hearing a song and hearing a pattern, hearing a chord progression, and just sort of knowing that that's what it should be. So at the age of 13, I sort of got my first guitar, and I used to just sit with it on my knee, a bit like I am now. I'd sit in front of my computer and I'd do my homework, and as I was doing my homework, I'd be, that's a C, okay, that's fine. There's an A, and there's an E. What happens if I drop everything down a string? Well, that's an A minor. Okay, and you'd start to find chord progressions and shapes, and I reckon I must have been spending between 6 to 10 hours a day doing that, and that sounds mad, but I had an electric guitar. I didn't have to worry too much about noise in the house because I'd plug headphones in and I could sit with my amp and sort of go through things. And I spent a lot of time just sort of running through chords. And then I kind of decided that I wanted to sort of do lead guitar. So the only scale I know cleanly is the pentatonic scale, and it's a... And all I used to do was sit with my guitar and go through that. And there's a video somewhere of me at one of my very first gigs with the school band, and the solo is literally me going... And it's just a pentatonic, but it works. But now I've kind of got to the point where it's... and you sort of expand from it over time, where you just... It's all about phrasing, all about feeling. For those of you that watched my last vlog, I spoke about feeling, about playing by ear, and for me it was like, that sounds good, okay. And it just became confident in the fretboard really, and moving on. So I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit because obviously it sounds like, I did all this in this short time period. It took me years to get to the point where I was like confident enough to really be sort of... I went on a guitar week in 2008 and we were having this jam session, and the guy running it, he said, like, play me... I can't remember what the scale name was. He said, play me that in A. And I just looked at him like, I have no idea what you just said, my friend. And he's like, okay, play something over this for me. And I did. And he looked at me, he's like, you're already playing that sort of scale. He said, you just don't realise that you're playing it. And I was like, I have no theory behind me. I know my notes on my top 2 strings. And in turn then you can work out what the pentatonic is. And the 2 E's are the same. It's just the B in the middle. For me it's about... practice. That's what I was trying to do, but it annoyed me. But again, that's by ear. I've got nothing in front of me to work that one out. It's things like that. So how did I learn my notes? How did I learn my first two strings? Because you go away and you learn your C and your D and your G and your E. And then I'd only been playing about 3 or 4 months, and I was at secondary school. And the music teacher, I was taking my guitar in and doing my music lessons and that with her. As in, like, when we did practical sessions at school, you know, if you could play an instrument, it was useful. And being left-handed, you had to bring your own guitar because all the guitars that were at the school were right-handed. And I hadn't been playing very long. And the music teacher comes up to me and goes, I know you play trumpet, he said, and you play in the brass band with that. He said, I want you to come play in the swing band. I was like, sorry, what? He's like, I want you to come play guitar in the swing band. I was like, I've been playing for 3 months at this point. I can hold enough chords to get me through a song, but I'm really confused. I said to him, what do you mean you want me? He said, yeah, I want you. I said, there's loads of guitarists in the school. He said, yeah, but I want you to come and play. I was like, okay, that's fine, that's great, that's cool. So anyway, I went home all excited and said, I've made it into the swing band and I'm going to be doing it this night. So anyway, we get to the first sort of practice or so. And he puts the music in front of me and he goes, I know you can't read the music, but the chords are above it. I'm like, okay, that's cool, that's fine. So anyway, we're going through and we're like... And then all of a sudden I'm like, what's that? And it was like, there was like some B minor sevenths. And I'm like, I know B. I just started to learn bar chords, and there's another one there. And I was like, I just started to learn them. I'm like, but I'm having to go like E, F, G, A, B. Okay, so there's the B, okay, or, A sharp, B flat, B. Sorry, A sharp, what am I on about? Yeah, A sharp, B flat, B. Anyway, we kind of sat there and the music teacher was like, okay, do me a favour. Just play me the root chord. So, if it's a B minor 7th, just play me a B. He said it won't sound quite right. He said, but keep it, to the top couple of strings. He said, go away and learn the chords. And what I found was that I actually went away and learnt the notes on these 2 strings. Because once you know what these are, you kind of know basically your basic bar chords. What I then found was there was this little trick, and I work very much in patterns and sounds, that's a G. If you take your middle finger out, that's a G minor. Okay. And that's an A, and that's an A minor. All of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern. And then I found that if you move down a string, that's a C minor. And that's a C with the middle finger off. So it's the opposite of the other way around. And all of a sudden patterns started to make sense to me. And then I soon found that, if you take a G and take your little finger off, that's the 7th. And I'm like, and then you take your other finger where you get the minor 7th. I was like, cool, okay, so all of a sudden I started to see patterns. So I went back to the session the next week and I was like, I know how to do this, and I started putting in the proper chords. And I put so much of my learning and my guitar experience down to joining that swing band because you had to be quick and you had to learn them quickly. And although I was still at the point where it was, very singular notes, very sort of influid, my chord stuff was starting to come together quite well. So like I said, I did all this on a black Strat. And then I wanted something a little bit different, so my gear started to change, and this is where most guitarists will tell you start to get into it. And I ended up with an Encore Les Paul copy, and that was just wow, okay, different sort of beast entirely. So out comes the sort of humbucker pickups, and I'm starting to get more into sort of rock music, so I'm listening to more Black Sabbath, and I'm listening to more that sort of stuff. And that's kind of where I then produced from, progressed from. So quickly then all of a sudden I started to go through the gear changes and so on. So I ended up with my Les Paul, my Epiphone Les Paul Special 2, which is like my pride and joy. And I ended up with this lovely big Tanglewood acoustic. I had a vintage acoustic beforehand, then sold it and got my Tanglewood. And then I ended up with this baby. And this ended up becoming my thing. So gigs wise, I did Stars in the Rise gigs. We used to do a local Stars in the Rise event, and we played as Nickelback, and I did that with my Les Paul, my Encore at the time. And then I moved on to my Epiphone. That was sort of my first gig that wasn't a school related gig. And then I started to join a couple of bands, and I say a couple of bands, I ran a couple, and we just never really gigged because things just didn't really massively take off. I was in a band called Lion Eyes for a while. We did a Stars in the Rise gig as The Cure. Had Zoe and Sarah who were sisters, and Leanna who was a drummer, and we did that, and we actually finished third out of 12 bands as The Cure, which was quite cool. I've got some old videos of that sort of stuff somewhere, and yeah, it was really cool. We did that sort of stuff, and then I started gigging a lot more, and then really what happened was the band started to fall apart. Vocalists started to run away and go off and do other projects, or not be in the area. And we'd had gigs booked. And so I just took my acoustic and was like, look, I'm really sorry. I'll still do this gig for you. It was only 15, 20-minute sets. Let me see what I can do. And all of a sudden I started to progress from sort of playing these odd gigs here and there, and then getting asked to play more and more. And that's where the Guitarist on Wheels thing sort of came out, was that I realised that quite quickly I was getting asked to be booked for gigs and so on. So yeah, that was kind of how I started really, and it sort of progressed to where I am today. Playing wise, I've stagnated and stalled a bit, I would feel. I can play, I'm a competent guitarist. I'd love to learn so much more, I'm not great at all my scales. I don't know anything more than the pentatonic, that. I inadvertently do other scales. I also do the blues pentatonic. I've also had to learn to play quite differently, because playing the acoustic is very different to playing my electrics. I spoke about that in my last vlog, and how I love the fact that when I record I get to bring the electrics out and get to go back to sort of my roots of that sort of real solo-y stuff, and that real sort of driven sort of stuff that way. But yeah, I grew up listening, my first gig as a 13-year-old was Eric Clapton, the Royal Albert Hall. I grew up listening to him. I've seen Wishbone Ash and John Anderson and Rick Wakeman. I've also seen Paramore. I've seen Budgie. I've seen Nickelback. I've seen Stained. The range of music that I listen to and I've seen has been amazing. And really, it's sort of progression of gear, which has helped my progression as a player. I'm not saying that you need good gear to be a good player. You don't. You can be the most amazing player on real cheap guitars. But I found for me, moving from an Encore Les Paul to the Epiphone just changed everything. Like the way the fretboard feels, the way the sound came out, it just made such a massive difference to me. And I was able to sort of like really get on with it and do a lot of stuff with that. So that was massive for me. So that's kind of a little brief background of how I started. I didn't want to make this vlog too long because I could talk for hours about playing and so on. But to this day, I've still stuck by, I've been self-taught. I've never had a proper lesson. I've been helped by friends who are amazing, great guitarists who said, try this and try that, and that's awesome. And yeah, okay, I've become a bit stagnant in my playing at times, and maybe my songwriting would improve more. But my plan is to work with other people and sort of get a bit more background from there. So yeah, it's just a short one. My next vlog, I think's going to be sort of around gear. For those of you who watched my last one, I've got some bits I recorded when I did the recording for Turn Down, and I'm going to try and use some bits out there and talk over that a little bit. So again, thanks for watching. And please do like and subscribe. It would be really appreciated. I'd love to see your thoughts. Any comments would be great. And we'll see you in the next one.